some sort of damage. Ba'or means fire, no? Doesn't the word ba'or come from fire?
In the skin of his flesh.
Where did I get the idea that it means a fire?
Be'era means to burn.
Yeah, okay.
It's a very good question. But there, the be'era, the bet is from the shorish. Bet ein reish ba'ar.
Okay.
And or is from, I guess, either ein vav reish or ein reish.
And how am I supposed to know the difference?
You have to know that the be here is in. It's a it's a relative pronoun or whatever you call it.
Okay.
That's how you know.
So a person literally means a person has skin in his flesh.
Has in the skin of his flesh, nega. That word is not here. He left that word out. The reason I picked this one, first of all, is because look at the date. Amazing.
Where is the date?
It says it's Taf Kuf Samech Aleph.
Where are you? Which number? Where do you get the
123.
123. Okay.
כנראה נאמר בתקופת לוז'נה, לפני סוף שנת תקס"א. So this is sometime before he moved.
What date is that? Give me real dates.
1801. It's before his second incarceration.
So he had been in prison once. And he was saying longer memorim now.
No, we said he didn't.
I waited 2 years.
Yeah.
So this is before Hanukkah incarceration.
It's probably for the first incarceration. He says Tafkuf Samachal because he's in Tafkuf Samachal Aleph. He moved at the end of Tafkuf Samachal Aleph in Elul. He moved to like he says, it's Sof Shnat Tafkuf Samachal Aleph. He moved to Liadi. But this is from the early years.
So Adam hu b'madrega gedola. This is talking about a big person,
so,
as opposed to.
No, it says there's four synonyms for the word man in Hebrew. Okay. Adam, Ish, Enosh, and Gever. So we didn't say them in the right order. Ish, Adam, Gever, Enosh. So Adam is considered to be a very high level. The highest is Ish.
Okay.
But
who's called Ish?
Like Moshe, Ish Elokim.
Okay, and who's called Adam?
Adam is V'ata ben Adam, like Cheskel is called 43 times. And you, son of man.
What's going down the scale?
And then there's Gever. Gever is the Midos.
Who's called a Gever?
Gever. Yirmiyahu, Aniya Gever.
Okay.
David HaMelech calls himself a Gever many times.
Okay, and after that?
And then there's Enosh. Enosh is the weakest, because it means sick. Anush.
Anush Alev Yaakov. So it meant just people.
Well, Ben Enosh is like saying the weakest of the people. It's like a common person who doesn't have any ability to overcome anything, and so on.
The Fishahu Shlimu Dechoila.
Because he's the perfection of it all. And the Zohar is called the perfection of it all. So this name, when you say Adam ki yeh ve'or b'soro nega Tzara'at, that's not the word I would have expected to see.
It's really referring to someone on a high stature,
right.
And you wouldn't have thought that a person who speaks Lashon Hara is on a high stature. Or if he's on a high stature, he shouldn't be speaking Lashon Hara.
And because of that, he received the punishment.
Perush, Mipnei shehu kalul mikol habechinas. Chesed u'gvura v'rachamim. Now, how do you know that refers to both Chesed and Gvura and Rachamim?
Good question. He says it contains all the midos. It contains all the different.
Rachamim is Tiferes?
Yeah.
So why doesn't he?
So you could say maybe here that the three letters themselves, Aleph, Dalet, Mem, there's different acronyms for how to open up these three letters of Adam. The famous one from the Arizal is Adam, David, Mashiach. Right? That's one possibility. But there's also others. I can't remember any offhand, but there's others. So it could be that each of the three letters reflects one of these midos. But really, it's just saying, since he's shlimu dekola, because he's the perfection of it all, the wholeness of it all. So it contains all the different aspects. Whenever you call somebody an Adam, Adam ben Adam, you're saying you're a whole person.
But it doesn't mean that you're perfect.
No, I'm
you
saying
can be a whole person, but you can have your issues.
Yeah, right.
בכל המידס וההנהוגס ששייכת בימי שהוא שליט ומושל בעולם. It refers to all of the midas. I don't know how you say midas in English.
Faculties, characteristics.
And the way he carries himself about. שייכת בימי שהוא שליט ומושל בעולם. That's related to how he rules.
Controls the world.
Controls the world.
Obviously, it doesn't mean controls the whole world. What he means is he controls his world.
עולם הקטן.
כן.
מה שאין כן, מי שדבוק לבחינס אחס בלבד, או שתיים אין הנקרא עולם. What does that mean? So nevertheless,
the person who's not balanced, who doesn't have all three axes of the sfirot in him. He's not from the world of tikkun, really.
Okay, so he's
skewed in one direction. So he's either all chesed without end, just loving kindness. He doesn't know how to stand up for anything,
right.
Or he's all gvura, or even if he has from the others, it's very weak. He can't. He's not really balanced. He doesn't know how to really carry himself. So that person would not be called an Adam. A person like that would not be called an Adam.
כמו משה, איש אלוקים. אף על פי שבחינס משה למעלה ממעלה, בכל מקום, בחינס אדם למעלה ממנו.
So this is a big chiddush. So here he's saying not like he says in the Yom Yom.
So Adam is higher than it.
It says that Adam is higher. I also saw that, but I remember the Yom Yom, and because in the last 10 years, that's the only thing I heard Rabbi Yitzchak talk about in terms of these four names. So that's how it sits in my head, according to the Yom Yom, that Ish is higher than Adam. Here's an example that Adam is higher than Ish.
And how can you say that Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't the highest of the highest of the highest?
Because
he was Mushlam in everything.
No.
Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't Mushlam in everything? Because there is in him everything. ויוכל לעלות למעלה בענייני המסו ולהשפיל למטה וכל העולם תלוי בו.
So it's very interesting. I didn't open the Zohar that he's quoting here. I have to look at it. Because it says here, Adam echad, Adam ze Moshe, sheba le'elef dor. Again, why is Moshe considered to be something that's lower? Because he's not in the world. It says that Moshe didn't have a sense, didn't have a chush in the world. I think that's what it says. I hope that's what it says. I'm quoting from the Ramach Otiyot, which is
well, you see it in Aharon. Aharon was Oyev Abrius.
Okay.
That's why they mourned for him for how long was it for? Men and the women.
Everybody mourned him, but Moshe Rabbeinu, not everybody mourned,
because he didn't have.
There was something about it, like he said, his anahaga was not his leadership was not perfect.
He wasn't checking out whether the Moshe Gadol's got enough money to make the wedding for his son.
Could be they didn't know about everybody, and
it was too high a level.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. He's in his spiritual world, so he didn't know exactly everything that's going on. So he says here, that he goes up and he goes down. So why was Adam? Adam was like that because Adam was the only human, so he was the only one who was able to do it. David was like that, and Mashiach will be like that. So those are like the regular acronym that the Arizal brings. But there's a thing in Ramach Otiyot, which I'll look up for tomorrow, about who had a sense about the physical world and who didn't. And if I remember correctly, he writes that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't. But I have to look at it again. I don't remember it 100%.
והנה אדם הזה, כשמוכשורים מאסוף, that's not right.
What?
You didn't put it on.
No, I turned on, but my friend just wrote me what I remember, the other thing that I remember, which is Adam, Ish, Gever, Enosh. But again, in the Yom Yom, it says that the Ish is higher than Adam. Okay, anyway, I have to look it up.
והנה אדם הזה, כשמוכשורים מאסוף ותיקן כל הדברים הבחינוס של המעלה, יכול להיות עדיין באור בשרו. So even this person, who is so great and so high,
I forgot I have another child here. Something. Yeah.
Can nevertheless still have some sort of nega in his soul.
Here below. Meaning in the way that his soul comes down into the body, there's still something to be desired. There's still a problem.
Because the goof is the famous
of the Maggid. There were people whose goof was also fine. meaning that they're, again, not the guf, not the body itself, because the body itself is not eternal yet.
How could Moshe Rabbeinu get angry? Because he said, because the body also has something to say.
Okay. So here the idea is that they control their body. And when he's perfect or whole, he's able to control also his physical actions.
Who did that?
Who did that? Like David. David's an example of somebody who was also able to control his physical actions. That's why he was a good leader.
בחינה התחתונה שבו לא נתברר הרע והפסולת ממנו. I don't understand what that means. I understand the words, I don't understand what it's saying.
So why is it that again, the lower aspect is called the skin of his flesh. Because the skin of his flesh is like a covering for the soul. It's like what the Greeks called the body soma. Okay? Why is it? Somatic means body in Greek. But soma also means jail. Okay? So they had this concept that the soul is imprisoned inside the body. We also have a similar concept. To a certain degree, the Rambam writes, he takes it from the Greeks, that b'churban haguf tibaneh hanshama, that when the body is destroyed, the soul can be built. Okay? And there's this idea that comes along also in terms of the relationship between Rome and Jerusalem. Lo nitmal'a tzor ela mechurbanah shel Yerushalayim. That tzor, what do they call it in English? I don't remember. Tyre, right? So it was considered to be a symbol of Roman rule, even though it was Phoenician. But it was considered to be a symbol of Roman. There's a lot to go in. There's a lot of symbolism in it. So the sages want to say that as long as Tyre rules, then Jerusalem is destroyed, and the other way around, that they can't exist together. You can't have them together. But that's not exactly the point of view of Torah. Torah thinks that it is possible to get to a body that is whole.
Perfect.
And the soul that's whole. How does that happen? It happens when the body is not a prison for the soul, but when the body reflects, it becomes some kind of reflection of the soul. Or, the way it's described in the future is that the body becomes a source of new knowledge for the soul. That it gains something from it. So the whole comparison between Tyre and Jerusalem is only temporary. In the future, you have to understand it will be changed. But in some people, they already in this world, they had such a level. Like another person who was like this was Rabbi Yehuda Nasi.
He didn't get any benefit from the world.
He didn't take any benefit, but he had complete understanding, he had complete control of this world. He had complete control of his body as well. So the idea there is that we say about Rabbi that he's one of the few people who zacha le'enot mishnei shulchanot ba'olam hazeh, who had two tables in this world, both the neshama's table and the body's table. He had both of them. He had both of the ability, the spiritual and the physical. So the person he's talking about here, this great person he's talking about, he's very spiritually advanced, but in terms of his body, at least the external aspect, the skin of the body, the most external aspect of the body is still tainted. It still has blemishes.
Okay.
V'noladim simanim begashmiut, and because of these blemishes, so you see the blemishes. You see this physical illness in him. And it's not natural. It's not sickness in the way that you understand illness.
It's not an illness of today.
Mileichot. It's a mistake in so it should be mileichot hametzuyim. You wrote it wrong. Leichot is the theory of Galenic medicine, right? That there are 4 humors. Mm-hmm. So each humor is called a leicha. Yeah. So it's not coming from the green, it's not coming from the white, it's not from the red, it's not from the yellow, from the black.
It's from something else.
Okay, it's not from. So a regular doctor can't even heal this.
כמו שכוסף הרמב"ם, שמצווה לגויים אין נהוג בזמננו, זה אחר החורבן, בפני שאינו מצוין כלל ששינוי בבוסו עצמו ולא שום לכו, שהרי הוא כמראה החמו עמוקה מן הצל. איך מעשה ניסים הם?
מעשה ניסים הם.
It's something.
So says the Rambam, we don't
Don't know what it was.
practice this whole thing of leprosy in our times because we don't know what it is. Because in our world, the only illnesses that there are illnesses that come as a result of these humors, problems in the body. The body is not working right. But
Which
by
basically
these
comes around from not conducting oneself in a holy manner.
sorry.
Which comes about from not conducting
Yeah,
oneself.
there's reasons for it, but in the end, it's expressed as an illness that I can trace to the body's function. But this thing has a strange characteristic to it, and the description is kamareh chama amuka minatzel. What is it? What do you mean? The sun is deeper than the shadow. Huh? What do you mean the sun is deeper than the shadow? What do you mean by that?
Good question. What do you mean by that?
But that's what's described it. I don't know what it means. Does anybody know what it means? I don't know if anybody knows what it means. But that's what it's described it. It's described that the sun is deeper than the shadow. So what are you saying? You're saying that somehow everything around it is very, I guess it's like saying there's a shadow and suddenly you see the sun in the middle. Something like that. I don't know exactly what it means. In any case, it's a miracle. If you would see this leprosy thing, you would see that it's not like any illness you've ever seen.
Did it ever actually happen?
Yeah, Miriam had Tzara'at.
Okay.
It happened.
Chutz Miriam.
There were many people who were Metzora in that time. And you see that the way they were healed was miraculous also. I don't think you can learn from this illness to every other illness.
You can't go and talk with everybody in the Yarden and they'll get better from all their machal.
I think that it's been tried. I think it's consistently not working. Meaning there's no even placebo effect.
Shame.
Yeah, the more I learn about these things, the more I realize placebo effect is probably 90% of the medicine in the world. It's not like I thought 30%. It's probably 90%. That's fine. But taking somebody with this illness, with any illness, and putting it and dunking him in the Jordan River is not going to help any of these. It's not even a placebo effect. It's something else. So he says this is a miracle.
מפני שברוך נס בעבודת השם תיקן במעשיו ובירא הרע מן הטוב בכל הדברים. הפסלת שבסוד לבושו עדיין לא נתברר, לכן נולדו בבשרוי.
So what does that mean? In spirituality, his service of God is perfect. He's clarified, he's selected, he's taken out the evil out of all the goodness. He's good. Only the good remains. That's in his soul, you can say. In his avodas Hashem, meaning in his character. He's rectified his entire character.
However,
but there's a little bit of litter. There's a little bit of trash left over at the very end of his clothing. The clothing here doesn't mean necessarily what he's wearing.
His spiritual.
It means his machshava, dibur, and ma'aser, meaning in the garments of his soul. So in the garments, and the skin is like a symbol for the garments, except you can also get Tzara'at, you can also get leprosy, this miracle illness. You can also get it in an actual garment, and in fact, you can get it in the far garments in the house, which are the far garment of the person, also what we wear. So in any way, so you have skin, garment or clothing, and house. All three of them are makifim. All three of them are external to the person himself. It's the last part of what we have as part of ourselves in the world. And the skin being the last part of the body, the clothing being the last part of what we call our garments, and the house being the last part of what we call the far garments. Okay?
וגם נגויים דבורים גבוהים הם, שאינו נקרא תומה עד שקוראינו הכהן.
This is a big deal. This is a huge deal. Nobody talks about this.
My grandfather said the words, it's tome, it wasn't tome.
Okay? Right? What does that mean then?
It means that until somebody presses the button and go, it doesn't go.
But what was it until then?
Nothing.
No.
It was something that looks like.
That's not what he's saying.
Looks like.
Is that what he's saying? There are high things, that when the Kohen says that they're tummy, they become tummy. But what were they before then? So let's see the next sentence.
משדיין לא קרא לו שם טומא, אין לו גורם כלל טומאה. לא טומאה. I said that.
But
אדרבה, הם ארז עליונים.
oh, this is a tremendous chiddush. That before the Kohen comes and says this is a tumah, it's actually a supernal light, because it's a miracle. And suddenly something appears in the skin, in the clothing, in the house. This thing that suddenly appeared is a miracle. It's something high. It's very high. In fact, it's so high, we'll see in a moment, it's so high that it's got a problem. Oh, so he says, according to the Etz Chaim, sha'ar Leah Rachel Veleah, and he says even look there, because I want you to read it there. Maybe we'll look at it later. Okay? Mm-hmm. That this is a special type of divine light that comes down. That's what it is. And the Kohen decides that it's tummy. But really, until the Kohen doesn't give it its name, doesn't
necessarily decide. The Kohen makes a declaration.
The
Chacham can come along and say to the Kohen, say that it's tummy.
Okay.
The Kohen can know nothing.
The Kohen can what?
The Kohen cannot know nothing.
What do you mean cannot know?
Doesn't understand anything about the Goy.
Of course he does.
But if the Chacham says to him, this is, so he repeats the words of the Chacham, and then it becomes.
But you still need a
even bigger miracle.
Okay. No, but then what we're saying is that the Chacham is the one who knows the halachas. Normally, the Kohen is supposed to be the person who knows the halachas, so therefore he can know if this is one of these miracle things and say that it's tamei or not. But until he comes, but if he doesn't, so a Chacham can do it for him. It's sort of like having a rabbi with you and telling you what the halacha is. But the amazing thing is that you need him to say. Right. That's the thing that's amazing. Why do you need him to say? Because until he doesn't say it, and that's the question, why?
It's not activated. It's not activated.
It's something else. It's activated. It's just something else. And that we'll see as we go on. There's not much place here to go on, but we'll see in the Rebbe's Sikha on it.
והוא ועל אהרון הכהן. פשטנו, שנתעלים על ידי הכהן, שהוא חסד אילו.
Oh. So why is it even brought to the Kohen beforehand? It's because the Kohen has an ability not just to say it's tamei.
He can also say it's good.
He can say it's nothing. You don't even have to go into quarantine. So why do you need to bring it to him?
Because he's the only one who can give the
just bring a chacham, and he'll say it's nothing.
Doesn't help.
Well, why? Because by the Kohen saying something, what's the Kohen? The Kohen is called the Isha Chesed, called the man of loving kindness. He has the power. It says here, Shehu Chesed Ila Dora Yamina. He's the right hand. He's the supernal loving kindness. The Kohen, V'yuchal Amtik Dinim. And he can sweeten the severity of these judgments. So he says, this light that comes from above is din. It's a very high light, but it's din. Meaning it's judgment. But it's very high. So if the Kohen sees that this is not what should be made into something that's Tzara'at, into something that's leprosy, so by looking at it, Vera'ah Kohen, just that he looks at it, he sweetens the harsh judgments. And it becomes a source of blessing for this person. Okay? She'omer tahor, so now they no longer have the dina kashya in them. They're just supernal lights.
So from this we learn that if he says it's tamei, then it's not tov gamor.
No, not yet. Now it's become a nega. But even as a nega, it has positive aspects to it. Why?
The
too difficult for him. He can't sweeten the severe judgments.
But in the end he does.
No, after the person went through a process, then he can. But as they are, he can't touch them. But as we'll see in a moment, maybe tomorrow, the nega itself, just the fact that so first of all, the fact that a person has this blemish, which looks like leprosy, whatever it is, that itself is a sign of of high superior spiritual level. It's just a question of whether, it's like saying, it's the same thing as the general thing in the Tanya that he writes about in chapter 27, that whenever God brings something down into the world, it comes down as new light. When there's something new, it comes down as a new light. It could be that you don't have the vessels to contain that light. So if you don't have the vessels to contain it, so it turns into something that looks to you like it's difficult. It turns into a difficulty in life. But really it's new energy, it's new light, it just didn't have the right vessel. So the nega, this blemish, is the same way. The person didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing wrong. It's just that Hashem is bringing down some light that is to help him finish his rectification.
But it is connected with Lashon Hara, so you can't say he didn't do something wrong.
So we'll see.
If it's a real nigger, he's for sure spoke Lashon Hara. And if it's not a real nigger, then there's a suspicion that he spoke Lashon Hara. It's a hint. He went through the yellow light instead of the red light, but you did something that, what would be the purpose of having something like a nigger and the Kohen saying it's okay? It has to be some sort of hint, as hara, no?
We'll see in the Rebbe's Sikha what he doesn't explain Lashon Hara directly, but we can understand what he the answer to your question from what he says. So we'll see it.
ולכן אין לגויים הוא בזמן הזה, בזמננו הזה, דהיינו שאין מצויים בבני אדום, מפני שהם מורים על ההסבוררוס הרע מן פנימיוס הגוף והנפש רק בחיצוניוס. וזהו אינו בנמסור אצלנו, שאף הצדיק, הטוב עדיין הרע קצות בפנימיוס. גדל המבין.
So he's saying that this is the final rectification of somebody whose evil, whose negative is only on the outside, only in his makif, only in his garments, meaning in his actions. So when you say Lashon Hara, so what you're saying is, when you look at what Miriam said.
It wasn't Lashon Hara.
Why is it not Lashon Hara? Because she said the truth.
No,
Lashon Hara can be the truth.
No.
Moshe was there.
She had no bad intention.
She has no bad intention. So that's what the Tanya says. That really Lashon Hara can even be thinking something negative about somebody. But the point is that you have a bad intention. And if you have no bad intention, even if you say it.
But she even had a good intention.
Okay, that's the question. Well, she had a good intention. But she didn't have a bad intention. So because of that, it's not really Lashon Hara. So why was she Tzara'at? Because by a person like that, who's already rectified his entire, he has no intent, meaning internally, he has nothing against the person. Still, the very fact that it could be interpreted that way. Again, but what is he makpid on? Again, internally she was fine. The issue is how she said it in a way that it could be understood as something negative. Because it could be understood as something negative by somebody. She had no such intent. Right? Chassidus moves the burden of changing a person from his actions to his inner self. It's not that the actions don't have to be right, it's just that they're not enough. You have to first, or before that, or more importantly, you call it all kinds of ways, says the Alter Rebbe, the problem in our generation is not the actions. The main problem is the inner state of one's soul, of one's psyche, how one is internally. That's the main problem, that's the main issue. And that's what the Tanya is about. To explain to you, the moment you understand that the main issue is inside, not outside, not how you act, not the behavior, but rather the intellect, the emotions, those are the problem, then the whole weight of Avodas Hashem changes and it becomes more about what you internally feel. I'll give you an example. Friday there was this video making the rounds, maybe you saw it, of Rav Edelstein going to Beit Shemesh. You heard about this? The Beitar, he went to Beitar. So Rav Gershon Edelstein, they call him the Rosh Yeshiva now. He's the one who took Rav Steinman's place.
Jewish?
So
I know so little.
You know who he is?
What goes on in the misconception world.
He's a chassid.
Okay.
He's like the same as Rav Kanievsky. He's not a Panovich. I don't think he's a Panovich. Maybe I'm wrong. He was in Ramat HaSharon. He grew up with his brother, Edelstein, who was the Rav Rashi of Ramat HaSharon. And they were both, I don't remember from which Chassidus, but they grew up with Litvaks. In any case, yeah, it's important just to understand his answer. So somebody asked him, they gave this question and answer session with him. He's 90-something. He's very, very about himself. He's very clear-minded. And he's very sharp. He speaks a little slurred. It's hard to understand him, but he's not that slurred. I mean, you can understand if you understand what he wants. And if you understand the context, you understand what he says. It's not very difficult to decipher. So they had these questions that they took from the audience. So somebody asked, and the person who was asking the question thought this was a question that was worth asking. So just to hear the question as a chassid, like, what in the world would bring somebody to ask this question? The question was, how do you become a gadol?
Oh, you get to gadol school.
You go to Hogwarts. What? Chassid hears that question. He says, what in the world would make you ask that question? That question is
The
so...
question doesn't exist.
That's so... Where did you get that from? Who wants to be a gadol? What does that even mean? It doesn't mean anything to a chassid. It's like, what are you talking about? So anyway, this guy who was intermediate, who was like the melitz, who was like taking the questions. So he asked him the question. He said, and he said right away in his comment, the guy who's giving the questions, oh, it's such an important question. How do you become a gadol? You can see that he's like, oh, I want to be a gadol. He's not what. So Gershon looks at him, and he smiles, and he almost laughs. He doesn't fully laugh, but he says, "Lo chashvim on ze, lo tzarich lachshav on ze." He says, "Lo lachshav on ze." Don't think about this. And then he says this like twice. And it's clear that that's the answer. What are you thinking about? What are you, nuts? What are you thinking about? So this Rosh Yeshiva who's taking the questions, fielding the questions and giving them to Rav Gershon.
Feels stupid.
No, he doesn't feel stupid. He says, I see, you have to think about it all the time. Because you think about it, that's how you become a gadol. He didn't hear the word lo lachshov al ze. He heard lachshov al ze. What? I mean, it's bad enough that you took the question and you thought it was interesting and you said it was interesting.
Yeah,
when you heard the answer, you couldn't hear the answer.
So then what happens?
You heard. So Rav Gershon, he's very edel. The same as Edelstein. He's a soft stone. He's very edel stone. So he says, no, that's not what I said. He said, you shouldn't think about it. He says, and he tried to give an example. He said to him, we say the bracha, la'asok b'divrei Torah. There's only a mitzvah to learn Torah. There's no mitzvah to become a gadol. So the guy's dumbfounded. You see his face. He's like, he doesn't know where he is. I mean, you understand why he doesn't know what to say.
Do you think he's on the way to become a gadol?
Because that's what he wants his whole life. That's what he's been looking for. So why am I bringing this up?
I don't know.
Because the whole Pnimius of Torah, when we say the inner teachings of the Torah, we don't just mean inner in the sense it's inside the Torah. It's hidden somewhere inside the Torah. We mean that it's dealing with a person's inner being. It's Torah for the inner being. And there was a Matan Torah of inner Torah. Who was the Matan Torah of the inner Torah? Who started this? Arizal, the Baal Shem Tov, whoever you want, you can say. But really, it's Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, it's Lag BaOmer. That's called the Matan Torah of so it's very telling. This all happened in the Sefira, so Omer. But more than that, it explains to you what the problem with Rebbe Akiva's students was. What they didn't know, V'ahavta l'racha kamocha. But what they're saying is it's very simple. You can do all the right things, but internally not have kavod for somebody.
Nothing happens. You do all the right things.
So it doesn't matter what you do, because inside you're so warped inside that the only reason why you're acting nicely towards somebody is because you want to be a gadol, you want to be appreciated, you want to be honored, you want to be respected, whatever it is. But you have no inner sense of what it means to be a gadol. That's what we talked about before, about this person in your shul. It works the other way also. If you care about the person, so what do you care about niceries or like protocol, or what does that matter? Maybe you don't do it in front of everybody, but sometimes you have to do it in front of everybody because you care about them. And you say, if I don't do this, you're going to spend your whole life thinking that you're okay, and everybody around you is hurting because you're not okay, because you're screwed up inside, in the inner sense. So,
it's all my fault anyway.
So that's what he's saying here, that this man, he's already rectified everything that's on the inside. Okay, the only thing that's now left is, you're right, he has something on the outside, in his conduct, in his behavior, that needs to be rectified. But this is a great person. Now, could somebody have said this before there was Chassidus? Could somebody have interpreted leprosy this way before there was Chassidus? Yes, the Zohar. That's the only place that interprets it this way. So you see that why the Zohar is working on the person's inner being. Again, in the regular world, when they hear Lashon Hara, so what do they say? Oh, you know why the person had leprosy? Because he said something wrong. The Zohar says, no. The fact that he said something wrong is only an indication of something. It's an indication of a different problem altogether. On the contrary, his problem is something entirely different.
He thought something wrong.
He has nothing wrong inside. He's an Adam. He's the highest level. So how could he have said Lashon Hara? So now we have to understand it. And we leave this mimer not fully understanding yet what it means. And for that, we'll have to read tomorrow the Rebbe's Sicha. So you can read the Rebbe's Sicha. It's in Kerech Lamed Zayin.
No, you're not going to print it? We'll learn it together tomorrow?
I'll print it, but you can also bring your own book. It's in Kerech Lamed Zayin. It's on page 37. No, it's not on page 37. It's on page 33.
Nice. You'll be very kind and very nice. To a big mitzvah.
What?
Send it to me on WhatsApp.
So it's on page 33. That's what we'll see tomorrow. Because really, when you come out of this mimer, this is a very early mimer. It's easy to see because he doesn't explain himself fully. But the Rebbe explains it. It's like the Rebbe wrote the second part of the mimer. If the Alter Rebbe would have said it after Liadi, meaning if he would have had time to expand it. So he expands it in other places, but here the Rebbe takes it in the direction he wants it. So that we'll see tomorrow, God willing.